now that it's finally working, I can finally hear my voice. I'm gonna look at the script. Scrippity script. So actually, so what happened like a couple weeks ago was I got to play Secret Hitler, which it's amazing. It's really interesting. And I played it before, but not like it wasn't as in depth as before. I just really enjoyed it. So anyways, every now and then our school has Thursday night football games uh, instead of on Friday because they have to share the field occasionally or for some other reason. And usually on these days, like three-fourths of the high school decides not to go to school. And as a little side note, my school is extremely small, so in total there were like 30 students in high school on this specific day. The teachers who don't really have a reason to teach since literally no one is there usually decide to do fun things for the people that stay. And uh, one day, one of these days, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, one of our teachers brought a game called Secret Hitler to school. And yes, it's as fun as it sounds. For those of you who don't know, Secret Hitler is a board game that falls into the category of social deduction, just like Among Us or Mafia. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that Among Us is easily one of my favorite games. Anyways, here's how it works. There are two groups of people, the liberals and the fascists. The goal of the liberals is to find out who Hitler is and to stop him from being elected. And they can do this by either discovering him or passing 5 liberal policies to win. The fascists, on the other hand, have to try and pass 6 fascist policies, or they can pass only 3 and then they can elect Hitler to win. To get elected as chancellor, the president has to choose someone to appoint. The first president goes to the youngest in the group, and then he goes clockwise from there. Everyone else gets to vote if they want that person as chancellor by holding up a ballot card with either the word Nein or Ja on it. It's very, very nice. If the majority votes Nein, then the next person in line becomes president and the cycle starts over. If the majority votes Ja, the president will then draw 3 policy cards without showing anyone, and the cards can either be fascist or liberal policies. The president then picks 2 to give to the chancellor based on what their goal is, and the chancellor chooses which policy to pass. The president can give the chancellor a choice with 2 different policies to see if they're trustworthy or to make themselves seem trustworthy, or they can give the chancellor 2 of a kind and not give them a choice. They can then choose to say whether or not they had a choice, or they can lie to frame the other person. It's all very fun stuff, especially once you get the hang of it. Anyways, at the beginning of the game, everyone's handed a little cute manila folder with their identity card and their party affiliation. And their affiliation can either be liberal or fascist, and their identity can show them whether or not they're Hitler. Once everyone sees their own identity, everyone closes their eyes. Next, the fascists, discluding Hitler, open their eyes to see who each other are. Then, Hitler lifts up his thumb without opening his eyes. This means that the fascists now know who everyone is, but Hitler and the liberals do not. Once everyone knows who they are, except for, obviously, everyone other than the fascists, the game begins. Obviously, I had a complete field day with this. So, during the first game, the 9 players included the teacher who brought the game, since we were in his class, the only 5 of my classmates who were present that day, myself, and 2 seniors. The cute little folders with our identities were passed out to everyone, and upon looking at my own, I saw a little blue card with the word liberal in bold lettering. I thought to myself, that's fine. This is pretty much a warm-up round anyways. I set my folder facing down back on the table, and then everyone closed their eyes. This was the part where the fascists found out who they're teaming with, and I of course kept my eyes closed. And once the fascists knew who each other were, everyone opened their eyes. The first president was on the opposite side of the table from me, so I wasn't going to become president until much later. The student with the president plaque chose our teacher to be their chancellor, and since it was early in the game, everyone voted yeah, because there wasn't a risk to it. Then, he proceeded to place down a fascist policy, to which the president claimed he gave our teacher a choice, throwing our suspicion on him. Our teacher had a surprised look on his face, and then he said that the president was lying. This meant that at least one of them was a fascist. And my classmate seemed pretty shifty, so I pieced together that the teacher was probably telling the truth. But then again, he brought the game, he's played it a bunch of times, and he's good at lying. Then the next president, who was also one of my classmates, chose another classmate who was sitting next to me, and the majority voted yeah again. He was not given a choice, and he placed down a liberal policy. This made me trust the current president, but I was still a little bit suspicious of the classmate next to me, and as soon as I voiced this suspicion, they all turned on me. Our teacher, though, had played many times before, and he trusted my judgment. He was president next, and he chose me to be his chancellor, either because he trusted me, or he might have just wanted to test me. Since there was no risk to this, everyone voted yeah, and he gave me the choice between two different policies, and I chose the liberal policy without hesitating at all. He then revealed that he gave me a choice, and this gave me the favor of the group for the next couple rounds. Fast forward to the point in the game where three fascist policies and one liberal policy were on the board, and now it's my turn to be the president. I gave it to the senior sitting across from me to test him, and everyone voted yeah again. I drew 3 policy cards, 2 of which were liberal policies, and I realized that if I gave him a choice and he chose a fascist policy, we probably wouldn't get another liberal policy, because there were not a lot in the deck. It's more likely for you to draw a fascist policy card. So instead of testing him, I gave him both liberal policies, giving us 1 extra point. He then became president next, and gave chancellor to a different classmate, and the majority voted 9 for his, because they didn't trust him, and his turn was skipped. Next up was a different one of my classmates, and we were all about to go full circle, like everyone had grown president. Not trusting him, I voted 9, drawing attention to myself. A fascist policy was enacted, allowing the president to select one person to kill. Immediately, like half the people started pointing fingers at me, so I started to defend myself, saying that I thought it was one of the girls. They didn't believe me, but they agreed that I was probably a liberal, so they decided to kill the guy sitting across from me. He revealed that he wasn't Hitler, but we were all pretty sure that he was still a fascist, so we just moved on from there. Fast forward a few more rounds, and the liberals ended up enacting the 5 policies needed to win the game. Everyone handed back their identity cards for our teacher to shuffle, and he told us he had to go somewhere. We let a sophomore take his place. The envelopes were passed out again, and I opened up mine very slowly for dramatic effect. I saw the word fascist in bold lettering on my party affiliation card, and I went to look at the other card, and oh my gosh, I've got Hitler. So now, the worst liar in the group had the card that involved the most lying. I started feeling my mouth, curl upward in a smile, and I had to turn away before anyone noticed. I was smiling so hard. Once I calmed myself down, I turned back to the table and set my cards face down, and I tried to look bored, even though I was really excited about it. So, everyone closed their eyes, and I held up my thumb so that the fascists knew who I was, and I had the biggest grin on my face when everyone's eyes were closed, and I'm pretty sure the other fascists saw it. They probably thought it was funny. Anyways, once again, I had to quickly make myself look bored so that people wouldn't immediately realize that it was me. And what made me try even harder not to smile was the fact that I became president first. Everyone voted yeah for the person I appointed chancellor, and I drew 2 fascist policy cards, as well as 1 liberal card. My goal was to get as many fascist cards placed as possible, so that when one of my fascist friends, don't take that out of context, elected me as chancellor, we would win the game. I gave my chancellor no choice, and he had to place the fascist card down. Most people bought it, but a few of them started to suspect that I could be fascist, so I would have to change their minds pretty quickly. A few other people went, and once the sophomore became president, there were 2 fascist and 2 liberal cards on the board. The chancellor played a fascist card, allowing the president to inspect someone's identity. He looked around for a few seconds, and he pointed his finger at me. I realized that we had no chance of winning if he found out that I was Hitler. I walked around the table and showed him my party affiliation card, to which he replied, "Yep, he's a liberal." Oh my gosh, we were gonna win. The fact that he covered for me made me realize that not only was he a fascist, but he was trying to let me know that he was a fascist. Now that there were more than 3 fascist cards on the board, all I had to do was become the chancellor to win the game. Each president would appoint a chancellor, only to be shut down by the majority until both parties were only needed to enact one more policy to win the game. All I had to do was get elected. My turn was next, so I couldn't become the chancellor. That meant that I had to enact a fascist policy to win, which would only happen if I appointed a fascist chancellor. I would have chosen the sophomore, but he was chancellor the round before. So now I had to figure out who else could be a fascist. I elected my chancellor and everyone voted yeah. I got 2 liberal cards and 1 fascist, so I had to give my chancellor a choice, and after a short look at the policies, they chose liberal. We just lost the game. I revealed that I was Hitler, and half the people at the table had expressions of surprise, betrayal, horror, or a combination of the 3. We ended up playing for another 5 hours, and I got Hitler 2 more times. We stayed in the same room until 7th hour when the teachers set up a scavenger hunt for us. I got 2 little boxes of candy out of it, so that was nice. That was the second time I ever played Secret Hitler, and I personally rate this game a 10. It's definitely going on my Christmas list.